This is Hollywood. Matías Bombal with you. In a rare instance, I must preface this review with a full disclosure. I once worked for the Tower Records Company for over a year at the Sacramento Tower Video Store located across from the iconic 1938 Tower Theater, where the famous record store chain started. Gravitas Ventures release All Things Must Pass, The Rise and Fall of Tower Records, Colin Hanks' documentary about music mogul Russ Solomon's chain of record and later book and video stores from its beginnings in the Tower cut-rate drugstore to worldwide growth. In 1938, architect William B. David built this streamlined modern neighborhood theater for Blumenfeld Theaters, a San Francisco family of exhibitors which operated 3 theaters in Sacramento. Built over what had been the city dump at the south end of town, this new theater, situated on Land Park Drive and what had been Y Street but renamed Broadway for the opening of the theater, featured adjacent retail spaces that faced the newly christened Avenue for Entertainment. Director Colin Hanks shows us that it was there, in a drugstore, that an empire was born.
The year was 1941, and my dad had a drugstore called Tower Drugs. It was in the Tower Theater building. The drugstore was tiny, and yet they had everything in there. He had toys, he had liquor, he had magazines, cigarettes, perfume, cosmetics, candy, you name it.
Deep within my heart lies a melody.
So we had a soda fountain in that store as well, and on the soda fountain we had a jukebox. One day my dad said, "Why don't we sell used records?" He asked the jukebox operator to bring in his used records, which he brought in and sold us the records for 3 cents, and we turned around and sold them for a dime. We sold them out right away, so my dad said, if we can sell used records, we ought to be able to sell new records. Went into San Francisco where you could buy all the records wholesale. 200 records cost about less than a couple of $100. So we said, fine, we'll spend the $200, give us a franchise, and bang, we're in the record business.
There you saw a savvy businessman in Russ Solomon, who from humble beginnings became a legend in the music industry in the United States and beyond. It was fascinating to see in images, stories steeped in local Sacramento legend. This movie is smart and snappy and is related to the audience by those company founders that lived along the red letter and yellow background ride of several special decades. Decades that touched the music, their lives, and to some extent our own. My favorite moment was a point of historical interest that I'd not heard about until this movie. The company's iconic color scheme was lifted directly from the eye-catching colors used by Shell Gasoline in their logo. The company grew and grew, expanding at last to New York City.
It was terrible. It was like, I kind of thought, what the fuck is he thinking, you know? There was a dead dog in the gutter.
I'm in shock. I thought we were in the bowels of hell.
And it was really cheap rent. I mean, the whole deal was like $10 a foot.
Literally, there was nothing else there. Empty office buildings, empty storefronts. There was nothing around it. I can't emphasize that enough. There was nothing around it at all.
You know, it was like a massive 4 stories, mezzanines, escalators, you know, very, very expensive store to build. Very risky.
We took it, and then we fixed it up. Everybody thought we were totally crazy, that nobody would ever go to Broadway and buy records. And we opened up, and the people are lined up to get in.
And here is this cavernous store, half a block footprint, 4 stories, had an elevator, it was so tall. God knows how much inventory was in there. It looked fantastic. Of course, the vinyl with the 12-inch artwork, it looked great and it was everywhere. Their singles department alone was probably bigger than any other store in my whole New York tri-state area. And it wasn't 3 years later when that whole part of town became vibrant again. Tower Records opening there literally revived those 8 or 10 square blocks of Manhattan.
An observation that I might make from my own personal experience is that the movie is told from mostly the perspective of upper management or major players that had started as clerks and then moved up the ladder. Russ Solomon is heard saying in his own voice how important it was that the kids in the store that knew the material were the very best way to most effectively sell the product. In what may have been a missed opportunity, there was almost no interviews that offered the perspective of the experience of the lowest level clerks and how they related to working at the giant chain. Sad, too, to see how technology advances and a corporate shakeup began the downward plunge of the retail giant. However, Colin Hanks gives us a great historical presentation of a singular and sharp business giant set against the revolution in music which occurred in an arc that mirrored the arc of Tower Records' life. You'll no doubt want to again visit a record store after seeing this movie, much more than downloading something onto your mobile device for audio playback. Record buying was a social event. What have we got now? Recently, this picture opened in the very Tower Theater building where it all started. Russ Solomon greeted the enthusiastic audience in the presence of the film's producers, and director Colin Hanks looked up to the screen to see his images and story reach an audience that had lived it. For those that did not, this movie tells of a special large family and generations of music that shaped our lives. I wish Colin Hanks every continued success in front of and behind the camera in future. The Motion Picture Association of America has not rated this movie. This is your pal, Matías Bombal, bidding you a fond farewell.